The U.S. just filed fraud charges against the Southern Poverty Law Center. It's accused of funneling millions of dollars to pay informants to infiltrate certain extremist groups. But when you read through this indictment, it's pretty astonishing. For those who maybe aren't familiar, we've been covering this on the show. But what exactly happened here in a nutshell?
Well, what the grand jury found is that over a period of many years, up to at least 2023, the SPLC, the Southern Poverty Law Center, was raising money and campaigning to raise money from donors around the country and around the world. And they were raising money, claiming that they were going to spend that money to root out racism and to get rid of individuals and organizations they believed were racist or otherwise didn't belong and consistent with their values. And what they were really doing, at least according to what the grand jury found, is they were paying many of these same organizations and individuals associated with these organizations, in some cases over $1 million over an extended period of time. And so they were doing exactly opposite of what they claimed they were doing. And secondly, and importantly, they set up bank accounts that were based upon completely fictitious information with fictitious companies in order to facilitate these payments.
So there were also fictitious narratives that came out of the SPLC's work in these cases. In the indictment, it talks about the Charlottesville Unite the Right rally, which was allegedly organized, according to this indictment, by someone who was being paid by the Southern Poverty Law Center to get people to and from, to fund the rally. It was a white extremist rally that happened in Charlottesville, Virginia. A woman was killed at that rally. Can you talk about some of the things that came out of this in terms of what was used against President Trump for years as a result of these so-called informants and this group paying people to essentially stoke racism in these narratives against Republicans and conservatives?
Sure. I mean, look, I think this organization has been public for years, and what they've said about conservatives and what they've said about judicial nominees, about President Trump, about conservative causes is well documented and not directly part of this indictment. But I think the reason why this indictment is so important, or at least one of the reasons, is that the very organizations that they claim to disdain and that they claim to be fighting against, they were actually paying money to individuals who work for those organizations. And significantly, at least according to the indictment, this was not information that they were sharing with their donors, meaning they didn't tell the donors, it wasn't on their website, that, hey, if you donate money to us, we're going to give some of this money to the Ku Klux Klan.
The SPLC categorized Turning Point USA as a hate group last year. And Charlie Kirk was killed only months after that categorization, after they put a target not only on his back, but on the backs of his organization and the students who are in it. The president, the day that Charlie was murdered, vowed to find each and every one of those who contributed to this atrocity and other political violence. This is what he said from the Oval Office. He said, including the organizations that fund it and support it in regards to the people responsible. So the trial is obviously ongoing, with Tyler Robinson being the suspect. But is SPLC just the beginning in terms of the kind of violent funding that we've been seeing put forward?
Yes, and look, I want to make sure it's clear that the indictment doesn't charge SPLC with funding violence directly, and so I want to make sure we separate the investigations that we're doing.
Yes, but it does say that they sent funds to various violent extremist group leaders, so indirectly connected.
That's right. Exactly right. That's exactly right. What I mean is that you make a very good point, which is that it is extraordinarily important that we investigate and find anybody who's contributing to violence, the political violence that has taken over the airwaves, that has taken over the streets of many of our cities. That is a priority and will be a priority and has been a priority. And you are right. President Trump has talked about it from the Oval Office. He's talked about it on Truth Social, and we have acted on what the President Trump has directed us to do, and I expect that you'll see more work around those very important issues in the coming weeks and months.
Before you go, I have to ask you about this. Minnesota lawmakers have launched an investigation into Congresswoman Ilhan Omar over her ties to fraud rings, Somali fraud rings in her home state. There was an accounting discrepancy on her net worth. She claims it wasn't $30 million. Now it's only $90,000. Does your office have any plans to investigate that particular claim against her?
I can just I won't talk about ongoing investigations. I know you're not asking me that directly, but I will tell you that combating fraud, especially in places like Minnesota, is at the top of our priority list going into the next year of this Department of Justice. And so to the extent that anybody is involved in fraud, no matter who they are, whether it's a congresswoman or a local person claiming they're running a daycare center when they're really not, we are going to investigate and find out what's going on.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.